I know exactly how much my electricity costs right now, down to the penny, and I didn't have to check an app or squint at a tiny meter screen. It is right there on the wall, glowing at me in red or green depending on whether the smart plug in the lounge is currently draining my wallet. But that visibility is just the tip of the iceberg. This $35 display is the single most honest component in my entire smart home, because it shows me exactly what my Home Assistant instance is thinking in real time. By the end of this walkthrough, you will have a fully functional data hub running on a $35 AWTRIX 3 Ultra, pulling live data from your actual sensors, zones, and energy meters, completely integrated into your daily routines without you having to write a single line of complex Python code. Here is the problem with the standard way of doing things. Most of us settle for glancing at our phones or shouting at a smart speaker to get the weather. It works, technically, but it is friction. You have to unlock a screen, find an app, wait for a response, or tolerate the chime of an Alexa device just to ask if it is raining. And dedicated smart displays. They are pricey, they are overly complicated, and they are usually locked down to one specific ecosystem. You need ambient information that does not demand your attention until it actually needs to. You need a system that shows you what matters, like who is actually home or if the heater in the nursery has kicked on, without you having to ask for it. You need a setup that is always on, always listening to your state changes, and never asks you to unlock a screen. We are using the AWTRIX 3 Ultra for this. It connects directly to Home Assistant via the built-in integration, so you do not need to mess about with MQTT bridges if you do not want to, though the option is there. Out of the box, it is just a clock. But we are going to turn it into a dashboard. The first thing we need to sort out is brightness. You might be tempted to just slap a light sensor on it and let it auto-dim, but in my experience, that is inconsistent. I prefer granular control. I have set up a helper in Home Assistant called input_number.awtrix_brightness. In the YAML, this is defined with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 255, starting at a comfortable 128. This creates a slider in my dashboard. When I am watching a film in the evening, I drag that slider down to near 0 so the display is not distracting. When I am working, I crank it up. The AWTRIX polls this entity directly. This means no logic is living on the display itself. All the intelligence stays in Home Assistant. The display is just a dumb terminal showing the state of input_number.awtrix_brightness. Now, let us talk about the data we are pushing to it. The most critical layer of any smart home is presence. I am tracking two phones, device_tracker.phone_1 and device_tracker.phone_2. But I am not just relying on GPS. GPS is flaky. It drifts. It thinks you are home when you are actually just parking at the neighbor's house. I have supplemented this with tailscale VPN tracking. This means the AWTRIX, and by extension Home Assistant, knows with absolute certainty when my device is actually connected to my home network. The display shows a simple icon for each person. If device_tracker.phone_1 is not in the zone home, the icon is gray. When it crosses the geofence boundary, it turns green instantly. I have also set up zones for work and nursery. If one of us is in the nursery zone, the display briefly shows a baby icon. This is crucial because it triggers the good_morning_routine differently depending on who is detected first. Next is the climate control. In the UK, heating is expensive, so I run a smart plug connected to an oil-filled radiator, defined in Home Assistant as switch.heater. I want to know when this is drawing power without having to check the energy panel. I have configured the AWTRIX to show a flame icon whenever switch.heater state changes to on. But it gets smarter. I have an automation called automation.heater_evening_on which kicks the heating on at sunset. When that automation runs, the display does not just show the flame, it also scrolls the target temperature. This is confirmed by checking the state of automation.heater_low_temperature. If that low temperature mode is active, the icon changes color to blue, warning me that the house is in eco mode. This visual feedback is vital. I can glance at the wall from the kitchen and see that automation.heater_bedtime_off has triggered successfully because the flame icon has disappeared entirely. This brings us to the heavy hitter, energy monitoring. I have a DCC smart electricity and gas meter, which is being read via a Hildebrand Glow unit. This feeds live data into Home Assistant. The specific entity I am obsessed with is sensor.dcc_sourced_smart_electricity_meter_cost_today. This sensor updates constantly throughout the day. On the AWTRIX, I have a dedicated app cycle that shows a pound sign followed by the current value. If the cost is low, it is green. If I have put the washing machine, tumble dryer, and the heater on all at once, and the cost spikes, it turns red. This is not a gimmick. Seeing that number go up in real time actually changes my behavior. If I see the red number, I walk over to the switch and turn off switch.heater manually because I know the daily_energy_cost_summary is going to be painful at the end of the month. The display forces me to confront the reality of my energy usage in a way an app on my phone never does, because the phone is in my pocket. This is on the wall. We also need to handle notifications intelligently. I have 6 Alexa Echo devices scattered around the house, managed by Alexa_media_player. Usually, I prefer audio for alerts. I have a script called dinner_is_ready which broadcasts to every Echo. But sometimes, I have input_boolean.do_not_disturb enabled, perhaps because the baby is sleeping in the nursery. In that state, the Alexa announcement is silenced. However, the AWTRIX is not silenced. It displays a burger icon and flashes gently. It acts as a silent pager. The same applies to the weather_report script. When the good_morning_routine runs, it usually triggers the script's .announcement to read out the forecast. But if input_boolean.guest_mode is active, I do not want the house shouting the weather at my visitors. Instead, the AWTRIX simply displays the data from weather.forecast_home, showing the current temperature and a rain icon if precipitation is expected. It respects the context of the house. Let us look at how this behaves in a real scenario. It is a Tuesday afternoon. Device_tracker.phone_1 is at work. The house is in away_mode. The display is essentially sleeping, just showing a low res clock. Suddenly, my phone leaves the work zone. The presence automation triggers. Home Assistant prepares the house. As I pull into the driveway, device_tracker.phone_1 enters the home zone. The welcome_home automation fires. The lights on my Zigbee network ramp up, the sunset_ambient_light scene activates because it is winter, and the AWTRIX bursts into life. It does not just say hello. It immediately cycles through the 3 most important things I need to know: the current electricity cost from sensor.dcc_sourced_smart_electricity_meter_cost_today, the current temperature inside, and the fact that device_tracker.phone_2 is also home. I walk through the door. Before I have even put my keys down, I glance at the display. I see the heater icon is off. I know automation.heater_evening_on has not fired yet because the sun has not fully set. I check the time on the matrix. It is accurate. I head to the kitchen. I notice the energy cost is slightly higher than usual. I check the display and see the tumble dryer icon is active. I realize I left the dryer running before I went out. I go and unload it. 5 minutes later, the cost on the display drops back down. The system has paid for itself just by giving me that one piece of ambient data. Later that evening, bedtime approaches. I trigger the bedtime_routine. This turns off the sunset_ambient_lights, sets input_boolean.bedtime_mode to on, and ensures the heater is managed by automation.heater_bedtime_off. The AWTRIX detects the mode change. It switches to night mode automatically, pulling its brightness down to the value set in input_number.AWTRIX_brightness, which I usually have set to 10 for sleeping. It stops showing energy data. It stops showing weather. It just shows the time and a small moon icon. If my partner wakes up in the middle of the night and walks past the sensor, the display does not blind her, because I am not relying on an auto dimmer that might glitch if the hallway light turns on. I am relying on a state change in Home Assistant that I have explicitly defined. You have now transformed a cheap LED matrix into the central nervous system of your home's status, giving you instant visibility into your presence, climate, and energy usage without the friction of checking a device.